Hello, friends. Welcome to Fiscal Focus on DawnNews English. This is Danish Khan, and today I'm joined by Dr. Aasim Sajjad Akhtar. He's professor at Aasim University, and he writes about political, economic, and development issues pertaining to Pakistan. Thank you, Aasim, for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
If you turn on any Pakistani news channel or TV show, you'll notice a lot of ads about the housing societies or gated enclaves. That's the only sector which seems to be growing, although it is also slowing down. Still, that's the only sector where new investments are coming in. Now, in the recent piece, you talk about patriarchy in Pakistan, and you connected it with the horrific murder of young female YouTuber Sana Yusuf. And it's horrific, but where we expected universal condemnation of this incident, we saw varied response. So, how do you analyze this?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, maybe it sounds like it's a bit of a stretch, but I think this relates very well to all of the other things we've been talking about. This is a country, a society which is, highly classed and uneven, and where the peripheries have always been denied their rights. And by the same token, this is a society that is highly patriarchal, in which at least half the population is basically not even, I wouldn't even call them a second-class citizen. I think are in many cases are struggling to even gain basic human freedoms. And we've seen this so many times in the recent past because of the disclosures that I think now are becoming more common. That this is basically, I would call it an epidemic, right? Where you have young girls, women, even Khwaja Siraz, constantly dealing with all sorts of violence. And then, as you noted, when an incident like this actually happens, which is commonplace, remarkably or quite, in a sense, disgustingly, you have a large proportion of the online population, because I think that's where a lot of these debates and responses are expressed in real time, actually blame the victim, essentially say, well, all of this is on that young, 17-year-old girl, because the content that she produced on her whatever social media pages was provocative or lurid or whatever, inappropriate. And I think, again, this is not the only country in the world that you see this. Whether it be in the so-called advanced countries, where you have a president in the US who is openly known as a harasser and groper, or even next door in India. I mean, the only bright spot in our region is Bangladesh, which probably has performed much better in terms of gender mobility within limits. Yes. So I think that's what patriarchy is, and I think patriarchy is in a sense, is like a triple-headed monster, along with capitalism and militarism. And I think they all reinforce one another. And I think that, the frustrations of a badly performing economy are taken out by young men on women, because they are easy targets, whether they do it in the home, whether they do it to a famous TikToker who is murdered, or whether they live vicariously, through some kind of militaristic adventure somewhere far away. And it's in that faraway place that, the weak women and children are targeted. These are all things that we see happening more and more on our screens. And, we see this. And I think that it should be alarming to think that, a brutalized, disenfranchised, increasingly marginalized population is in fact responding to their hardship in increasingly brutalized ways, right? Whether it be by brutalizing young women, or there could be a host of other examples. So it is, I think, in a sense, my feeling, however, is that we go from event to event, incident to incident, and then the news cycle takes over, and then we forget. And it's only when the next incident, horrific incident, comes to the surface that we're like, oh no, we have to do something about this. But in the meantime, the rot, as I said, a hydra-headed monster, becomes more and more entrenched. And I think some of our debate, unlike what we're doing here, most of the debate is very so superficial, very surface level. And that's why the depths of the structural problems are never really interrogated, and we just react to individual events. And I think that that means the problem is getting deeper, and we are not really talking about or identifying what we need to do in the long run. Because like the economy, there's no short-term solution here, right? These are deep-seated views and forms of power that are articulated in our society by men or young boys who themselves, by the way, are not immune to the fallouts of patriarchy. It's not as if, young boys, in fact, for instance, we hear every day of young boys being abused by clerics. I mean, this is also something that happens in our society all the time. So it's not as if they're immune, but as I said, they themselves are brutalized, and then they take out their frustrations on sort of genders that are even more oppressed than them.
Yes, I mean, you rightly put it out. The patriarchy is overdetermined by both economic and non-economic factors. So thank you, Asim, for sharing your perspective. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. Until next time, this is Danish Khan signing off from Dawn News English.